Let me start doing that. Okay, we should be recording. Yes, okay. So just a little bit of housekeeping for everybody. If you just want to make sure that any other systems on your computers are closed, and yeah, if you've got noise or things going on in the background, that's not a problem. Just make sure that you mute yourself, because that will help us to keep everything on track. As I said, we will be recording this webinar, and we'll be sending that link to you after it's uploaded. Right, so just a little bit of an introduction to myself. But first of all, what I want to do is get my, I want to share my screen, desktop, share screen. As I have a little PowerPoint presentation. So it won't be death by PowerPoint, I promise you, but the visual aspect, I think, really helps to enhance the look and feel of what we are doing. So can everybody see the screen? I don't know how to change this. Anyway, we'll see if I can move it a little bit up there. Right, and let me just move that so everybody else can see. I don't know why these little things keep popping up. Come on. Off you go. Anyway, so we'll do an introduction about Avatar Adventures, then a little bit about myself and Kate to give you a background on who we are and why we're doing what we're doing. And then we'll do the virtual tour, which was a great idea that Kate came up with to give people a little bit of a taste of the actual tour that we'll be doing over a 10-day period. And then we'll do some questions and answers at the end if anybody has anything they'd like to share or they have questions about anything that we've discussed. Okay. Come on. Right. So, My Avatar Adventures, Transform Your Life, Make a Difference, is a conscious-based organization. And we're basically offering what we call purposeful adventures in support of specific endangered wildlife projects. And it was a process by which I went through on a personal level that helped me get to refine it to being very focused around endangered wildlife species. And specific organizations that we like to support that we believe are making a significant difference on the ground level, and that we're able to raise money that will directly help their causes, as well as obviously creating the awareness of the plight of the endangered species that we choose to focus on each year. So our mission is really to create awareness around the plight of endangered wildlife. As you might have been able to pick up from my accent, I'm actually from South Africa, but I was actually born in Zimbabwe. But I've lived most of my life in Africa until I moved to the UK 18 years ago. And then recently moved to Spain nearly 5 years ago now. So I had a significant calling to go back to my roots. And this is where my reconnection with the wildlife, the land, and the people really got ignited again, when I didn't think I would ever be going back to Africa. We also, one of our missions is to assist financially and energetically the charities that we choose or the projects that we choose to focus on to help our endangered wildlife species from extinction. And I think that we can all agree that we've got to a certain level in our human species capacity that we realize we are in serious trouble when it comes to our wildlife. The numbers in the last 10 years have reduced to such a high level that they beat the previous 50 years, which just shows you the speed at which our wildlife is being threatened. And if we don't do something about it, which of course, you know, a lot of people are now really starting to focus on it, going to Africa and seeing you know, the lion, the elephant, the giraffe, all the animals that make Africa so special will just not exist anymore. And that to me is just it's not an option. We also want to provide a safe space on our trips for those that are called to what we call reawaken their instinctive connection with nature. And we do this through interspecies communication and personal transformation. And I found that this way of reconnection is re-remembering things that we already know, and it's just allowing us to reawaken to them within an environment that is very safe. The energy is very well held and supported, and everybody has their own unique transformational experience through it. So they can be hugely life-changing because of that reason. And then obviously to provide the opportunity to learn how as individuals we can actually make a difference. Because sometimes that challenge seems so large that it can be overwhelming. And I know a lot of the ladies who've already booked on our trip, Kathy being one of them, a lot of them have already, have a high sensitivity to the plight of animals. And that is increasing all around the world. We do find it's predominantly female at this stage, and we're hoping that the masculine energy starts to come over from what we call the dark side into the light side, because unfortunately most of the hunting is obviously done by men, and the poaching and all the other elements that threaten the wildlife and their environment. So just a little bit of information and introduction about myself. I have been in the events industry for the last 28 years. Originally started in South Africa before I moved to the UK. It was about 10 years ago that I moved into the personal transformation industry, personal development industry as far as events were concerned, and was very interested in changing our mind perception, our belief systems. And so I ran one of the largest UK public event management companies in the country for a number of years before I decided it was time to pack up and move on. I then moved here to Spain, mainly for the sea, the sun, and a different way of life, a more conscious way of life. And unfortunately fell very ill. It was my body catching up with years and years of long-term stress. However, I'm starting on that road to recovery now, which is really awesome. And my passion for reconnecting with the land and the animals, and remembering so many of my own personal experiences as a child, was ignited by a beautiful white golden retriever called Max, who I met on the beach here in Spain where I live, who was lost. He had a collar with his name tag on it, but he was quite dirty and obviously very hungry and thirsty, so I gave him some food and some water, and contacted the number that was on his name tag and suggested they come and pick him up. So while we were sitting there and waiting, I suddenly had this whole story going on inside my head of exactly what had happened to Max. And I thought, I was having a glass of wine, it was New Year's Day, I thought maybe I had drunk a little bit too much, or something was percolating in my brain and I was imagining things. But Max was having a conversation with me, telling me what had happened to him. And I thought it was very strange at the time, but didn't think too much of it, but felt very connected to him. Anyway, this lady arrived to pick him up, and she explained exactly what he had told me had happened to him. So she confirmed what I already had just been told by him. And it wasn't in a language, it was in more pictures and a sense. But, it basically came down to 2 days ago, he had left, this is how he described it, he had left his home because his owners had gone away and somebody else was looking after him and they weren't paying him attention. So he thought he'd go on a little bit of a run around and got lost, and was now very hungry and wanted to go home, but he knew he was in a lot of trouble, so he was a little bit scared. Anyway, and so she told me exactly the same thing. Basically, she was from the next town down. The owners of the hotel were his humans, that his owners, and they were away, and she was actually helping out, managing the hotel, a small little hotel, and that she hadn't been able to give him a lot of attention, and he'd been gone for 2 days. And so I was shocked. I was dumbfounded, to say the least. Anyway, I promptly cried all the way home and sat down and thought, I don't know what this is about, but it all feels very familiar and very strange and very weird. And so I started on my journey of interspecies communication. And I studied with a number of people over the years, learning and fine-tuning my ability to connect. However, I never felt that that was really the direct path for me to follow as far as something that I wanted to do full-time. And I kept getting these dreams around wild animals. And I remember waking up at 3 o'clock in the morning in such sadness. I've never felt such sadness in my life about endangered wildlife species. And that message kept coming up to me. So I did some research on it and cried even more when I saw how large the list was of the endangered species, and not just animals, but plants too. And so this really motivated me to focus on it. However, I had no idea how my event background and animals and saving wildlife would marry up until I contacted Linda Tucker from the Global White Lion Protection Trust, because I had a visit from a rather large white lion a number of times who wouldn't go away. And that was my initial start into creating adventures that were transformational through interspecies communication. So that's just a little bit about me. I am the creator and organizer of the event, so that's pretty much my role, as well as sharing my conscious lifestyle principles, which make up the way that Avatar Adventures is run. So, for instance, we would choose a local tour operator who's based in Nairobi to actually handle our arrangements, rather than using somebody who's based either in Spain or in the UK, because we want to make sure that financially we're supporting the land that we're going to. Our adventures include a lot of elements of what I call the 7C principles of conscious lifestyle and business, which I'll be sharing a little bit more on the actual trip. So that's me. I'm going to pass over to Kate. So Kate, if you'd like to introduce yourself. I met Kate about 4 months ago. She was recommended to me by another wonderful animal communicator. And when you have those moments when you connect with somebody and it's like you've known each other forever and they're like your soul sister, that's the experience I had with Kate when I first met her. And she has been incredibly supportive and wonderful in helping me to create and put this all together. So it's been a real, true, conscious collaboration. So without further ado, Kate, on to you.
Oh, thank you, Tamar. I am so excited to be part of this journey and this adventure. It was really a labor of love. My whole career as an animal communicator, I just feel so blessed that I can be a voice for the animals. And I had wanted the opportunity to go to Africa. I had missed an opportunity to go when I was like 13 or 14 with my uncle, who is a biologist and a internationally known monarch butterfly specialist. There I am with my little lion. That's Azul. So I thought I may have missed that opportunity because I didn't go. I was into teenage stuff and I wanted to be with my friends, and I regretted that. And so when Tamar contacted me and told me we were going to visit the David Sheldrick Wildlife Trust, I literally burst into tears because I had been following them and donating to them for a while, and was passionate about Dame Daphne's work and how she really she really set the tone for how to take care of orphaned elephants and rhinos and giraffes and emus, and but she really was the one who learned how to do that, and now that work has spread to other countries in Africa, and that is so exciting to know about. And then when Tamar said we're going to see the elephants at the trust, I just was overjoyed. And so yes, it's been a lovely partnership of soul sisters, and the people that are going on this trip, I feel, are really guided. They connect with the mission of Avatar Adventures. They connect with the idea that we are going to be communicating intimately with the animals through our hearts. This again is just exactly where I love to be and live and be a voice for the wild animals. I think that's going to be so important going forward, that we give a voice to the wild ones, bring them to the table as humans are trying to solve the problems we've created. And there's so much we can learn from the wild ones. So to that end, we are, and we'll talk a little bit about this later too, is that we are going to be doing some animal communication classes before the trip to help everybody just go deeper and learn how, and have some practice time before we actually are together. But I love being with Tamar because she does feel and connect to the animals deeply and has this background in communication. And I know when two or more of us are in that energy, it augments the energy of everyone in our circle. So it's a very powerful thing when there's, two or more of us connecting to the animals. It makes I think it just opens the radio frequencies even better, to help others who are maybe a little more new to it than we are. And my background, I've been an animal communicator professionally for over 25 years. And it was my experience as a little girl. I was open and receiving and communicating. And then I closed it down when I was about 8 years old, with the death of my beloved first teacher, my cat Bestie. And the fact that none of the other humans I knew around me were able to perceive what I could. I saw it as a door open in my heart and mind that was closed in theirs. And so I just didn't know how to go forward, with the deep grief of loss of my teacher, and the fact that nobody knew what the heck I was talking about, and they were getting kind of concerned that I was talking to animals. So it wasn't until my late 20s that it started to come back, and I knew I wasn't crazy, and I just continued to practice. And it was the trees who were my teachers at that point, which was such an amazing gift. My own dog wouldn't talk to me at the time, but the trees helped me along. And this was back in the 1980s. There weren't books. There weren't people out there saying we're animal communicators, we're doing this. So I did eventually learn about Penelope Smith, who was one of the pioneers in our field and contributed to her newsletter. And, Penelope and I have been in touch with each other for all these years, never met in person. But I've watched the profession grow from just a handful of us putting our shingles out to now, in her newsletter, it used to be regional. First it was just a list of about, like I said, 10 of us. Then it became regional. Then it became by state. And then it became, different parts of the state and people in Europe too, who were putting the shingle out, which is just makes me so happy, because the more of us who are doing this, the greater our voices will be and are for all life on the planet. Mm-hmm. And we're needed, all of us, to raise our voices for the animals, the plants, and the planet. So I'm delighted and thrilled beyond measure to be part of this and experiencing this with Tamar and our amazing group of right now, just women. Although there's a nice man that I know who might maybe think about doing this. A really, really nice man who just happened to get married. Anyway, it's just so exciting. So thank you, Tamar, and let's show everybody what we're going to be doing.
Absolutely. Thank you, Kate. And yeah, I couldn't have been more gifted with the perfect collaborator when it comes to doing something so important as the trip that we're going to be doing. So, I thank the universe every day for Kate. She's been a real godsend to me. It's not always easy to find the right collaborators. I really don't believe we can do it on our own. And so collaboration is a very important part of especially our movement and how we're moving forward. And so very blessed to have Kate and Christian Pedros as well. For me, has been another one of those rocks that have stayed the course of time. It doesn't matter how many of these adventures we do in the future or which ones we do, the relationships that we set up, we want to continue them for a long time to come. And that includes everybody that participates with us on the trips. Because as much as we're teaching, we're also learning. And everybody has something to contribute towards this kind of experience. And we want to encourage that as much as possible. So thank you, Kate. Right, let's talk a little bit about this wonderful adventure that we're doing in September. We came up with the name of Empowering Our Hearts, Awakening to the Ancient Elephant Song, which Kate very eloquently put together, because we do feel that, the way that we can empower ourselves is really in the way that we return to nature and how we reconnect with nature and how we bring that forward within ourselves as human beings, leadership, and how we show up. And I think the more that we reconnect, the more that we can change things in every aspect of our lives and those other people that we influence within our lives, whether it be personal or business. The adventure is co-hosted between myself and Kate, which is great because there will be elements that I'll be focused on and other elements that Kate will be focused on too. And runs from Sunday the 9th of September until Tuesday the 18th of September. So it's 10 days. And we added in a couple of extra days. They're normally 7 days long, mainly because I wanted to go to Kilimanjaro. So because there's nothing more iconic than seeing, the African elephant with Mount Kilimanjaro in the background, and those beautiful flat tree thorn trees that you see there. So we really wanted to make that extra excursion. So one of the main films, and a lot of films inspire me, which is why my business is called Avatar Adventures, came from Avatar the movie, because it was like I was living in a parallel universe, and I really related to that film. Another one of those films is Out of Africa, and that's when I got my first look-see into what Kenya really looked like. Even though it was slightly biased on the version of through the Commonwealth, which was an interesting way of looking at it. I never forgot those great Quranic scenery and scenes of Kenya. And Kenya for me has always meant real Africa. South Africa is great, but it's a first world country in a third world continent, whereas Kenya, I feel, is much more the heart of Africa. And of course, the iconic elephant that is synonymous with Africa. Obviously, there's an African elephant. You obviously get the Asian elephant, which Kathy will be sharing, I'm sure, with us a lot of information about her recent visit to Asia to photograph the amazing Asian elephants. But yeah, they are the largest and oldest mammal in existence in Africa, and they are under serious threat. And so for me, the combination of Kenya being the right place and the elephants being, and it's interesting, every year I get called to specific animals to focus on them. Sometimes I have something else in mind and it just never happens, and I get messages. And the elephants were coming in very strongly for us to focus on for this year. Part of the principle of how we set up our ventures is always in support of the Wildlife Trust, and we chose the David Sheldrick Wildlife Trust as one of my participants on one of the White Line adventures that I hosted in 2016. She was very passionate about the Sheldrick Wildlife Trust. She had visited a number of times, and similar to Kate, had been sponsoring elephants for many, many years. And I had briefly heard about them. In fact, I'd heard more about Dame Daphne Sheldrick through a number of videos that I had seen. And I had understood that they had saved elephants and that they were in the Tsavo National Park. What I didn't know at the time was that there was a little orphanage that was run in Nairobi. And so that's where we will be visiting on our first day of our adventure. Is we will be in Nairobi and we will go and visit these beautiful orphan elephants. And they orphan for various reasons, but primarily it's usually man-induced in some way, shape or form, whether it's poaching or land issues or hunters for ivory. And so, baby elephants, like baby humans, would die if they didn't have care, and especially physical contact. And so it's very important to get them as soon as possible out of their situation and bring them into a loving, caring environment in order for them to survive. And so as an organization, we've adopted 3 of the baby elephants. So Madiba, Kiasa, and no, I can't remember the third one. Oh, it's gone out of my head again. Anyway, I'll remember it at some stage. But 3 wonderful baby elephants, which, funny enough, Kate and I actually sponsored the same one of the same babies, even though there's a list of like hundreds of them. Her and I, for some reason, picked up on the name Kiasa, which was, and I like Madiba. He's a boy, and he reminds me of Madiba, our wonderful president, private president, yes, of South Africa, Mandela. So yes, we will be visiting them. We are sponsoring. It would be great if everybody in the group would take the opportunity to sponsor, because that allows us then the additional time that we will be spending with them as sponsors. So you have the general public opportunity to go and spend time with them, which we will do, but then as sponsors we get a private session for us to spend time, if you like, with our chosen elephants. What nobody knows yet is that we're going to add in a little trip to go and see the mature teenagers who have been let out into the Voi facility, which is kind of like where the teenagers hang out, that have come from Nairobi before they get allowed out into the Tsavo Park. So when we're going into that area, we're now going to do a little trips to go and spend some extra time with the slightly older, cheekier lot. So that should be really good fun. Which was a great suggestion by Beverly, one of the ladies who's actually coming on the trip with us. She is very enthusiastic, and like Kate, she's been sponsoring elephants for a number of years. So I'm very grateful for her recommending we do that. So Tsavo National Park is one of the first locations that we will be going to. And I'm sorry, let me see if I can move everybody out of here. So I'm just going to move you down. Hopefully, no. Interesting. Right.
We can move ourselves. I've been moving us around. So if you click on us, we can move us up, you know, to the side.
Oh, okay. So you guys can do that. Okay.
Yeah, we can move us. Yeah.
Fantastic. Okay. So, so just before we move on to the Tsavo National Park, we will be, just because I saw the giraffes here, we will be visiting the Giraffe Center in Nairobi as well, and the Karen Blixen Museum. So relating back to the Out of Africa film and Karen Blixen and the impact that she had and the work that she did with the environment there, we'll be visiting that museum on the same day. So yeah, and it'll be lovely to see the giraffes because we can actually have photos taken with them. It is very touristy. It's not, you know, it's not the best way to see them, but it's a nice upfront and personal way. We'll see lots of the giraffe when we're on our trips, but this is a nice close encounter. So we'll have that with the elephants and with the giraffes. So Tsavo Park, it's one of the oldest parks in Nairobi. In Kenya, and it's 13,747 square kilometers. It's very, very large. It has volcanic outcrops and a beautiful set of waterfalls in it. So we'll be spending our second day in Tsavo Park at the Voi Wildlife Lodge, which is a lovely picture on the right-hand side there. So yeah, we'll be staying at mostly lodges and camps, so trying to keep it as natural as we can, with a bit of luxury, but not going overboard. We will be while we're in Tsavo, Kate will be doing some animal communication with us, following on from the two recordings that we would have done before the trip. And it really is just to help find out where everybody is, how their experiences are going so far, and how we can take it to another level. But we'll talk more about that for those that are joining the journey. We then go to Amboseli Park. Amboseli Park, it spreads across both Kenya and Tanzania. It's the only park that actually does that. It's famous, very famous for its large herd of elephants, which is spectacular to see. And of course, you get the views of Kilimanjaro as well while we are there. And we'll be staying in Kibo Safari Park. And again, that's another picture of that there on the right. We then move on to Lake Naivasha. This is a fantastic location. As you can see, there's some giraffe walking around and wild horses walking around in the actual facilities. How much of that happens, I'm not too sure, but it'd be very interesting to have that encounter. And I'm sure, of course, they're used to humans, so that will be great. One of the great things we'll be doing is the hippo boat ride. And if you know anything about hippos, they are gorgeous. I mean, I just love them. They've got such great characters. They are super fast on land as much as they are in the water. I've seen some hippos move so quickly, I just thought it was completely impossible for such a large animal to do that. But they get so buoyant in the water, they move very, very quickly. Unfortunately, they are the animal that kills the most people in Africa is the hippo. But that normally happens because of human influence, interaction into their environment. So, which is very unfortunate, as you can imagine. And they can be very protective, and they don't mock charge like elephants. When they run, you run. You don't wait. You don't try and stand them down. You run. I've never had that experience with them. I've only ever had really good experiences, so I don't want to mispromote them. They are fascinating to watch, and of course, you know, they're wonderful when they're in the water and the little ears are going and they pop up and then yawn like that. So I'm sure the boat ride will be very interesting. And of course, they're very experienced, so keep us nice and safe, which is obviously really important. Right. We will be staying at Lake Naivasha Sopa Lodge, for that night. And then we'll be traveling onto the Masai Mara. And this is the correct way to spell Masai Mara. A lot of the commercial tourism promotion is MASAI, but actually it's Masai Mara. And this has been a lifelong dream for me, which is why we're doing it, because I wanted to include it in the trip. But how can you go to Kenya and not go to the Masai Mara? This is where the magnificent migration happens that goes from Kenya to Tanzania and then back again. You have over 25% of the wildlife of Kenya are in the Masai Mara. They go from, migrations from Serengeti in Tanzania into the Mara, about 1.5 million wildebeest, zebra and antelope, and usually from July to October. So that's why we chose the dates that we did, was to ensure that we would be there as part of it. We'll be staying at the Centrum Mara camp, and we will be on the experiencing the hot air balloon, because for me, to be able to see the Masai Mara from above gives you a much better idea of the enormity of those numbers of animals on the plains. And of course, the more animals you have like that, they attract all the predators. So you have them all following the herd. So it is a phenomenal sight, and it's very much worthwhile going up into the sky to see it. So we have included that in the actual trip. It's a significant investment, but it's worth it. And we get a fantastic breakfast with it, which is always great. Just to talk a little bit about the Maasai people. Again, another principle of what we do on our adventures is understanding more about the people. And actually, the Maasai population is only about 1.5 million of the 47 million Kenyans. So it's actually a very small part of the population, but they have had more notoriety than any other group within the Kenyan tribal system. And I think a lot of it has to do, of course, with the beautiful colors that they wear. You can see here the amazing headdress and the way that they dress. And the dance which they do, a lot of that happens in celebration ceremonies. The Maasai land is about 160,000 square kilometers, which actually isn't large. They've lost a lot of their land to farming and the government taking their land illegally. So there's a lot of challenges and problems around this. In addition, they've turned to livestock for their livelihood, because that's the only way that they can earn money. And of course, this comes into direct conflict with wildlife. And so there have been a number of major challenges between the Maasai people and the wildlife parks. However, there's major re-education and training going on to show them how tourism, for instance, and looking after the animals is a great way to bring in money, as long as it, of course, goes to them directly, which is really important. And so these are some of the issues that they're dealing with. There's a very interesting all-women's group that have set themselves up in their own village because of the female castration, which is part of their tradition. And they have, over the last 25 years, some women have decided they're not doing that anymore and have left their husbands, and now they live in this village where it's just females and no men are allowed at all. And it's a refuge for any females that don't want to go through some of the rather dire tribal processes that they have in the traditions of the Maasai people. There's a lot changing with regards to that, but I think it's taking a long time. And Maasai men, I've watched a number of documentaries on it. The Maasai men have a very interesting perception about women and how their part should be played. So it's going to take, I think, a few generations for that to kind of come to a different position than where it is at the moment. I don't want to spoil all those stories because we're going to be meeting, we're going to be visiting a village, we're going to be meeting an elder, and I'm sure we'll hear a lot more information about that. But just if you're interested, there is a lot of information about the Masai Mara, about the Maasai people. National Parks, okay. So I just wanted to make sure that I covered off all those points. So very excited to meet them. The homes that you see up on the right-hand side are very much the traditional homes. They used to be extremely nomadic, which they are less so now. Mainly because they don't have the land or the availability of free land that they can travel as much as they would. But a very intriguing culture, which I'm sure we're all going to find extremely fascinating. And I do think that there are things that they have learned that we as disconnected Western human species can learn about how to reconnect with the land and how that helps us to prosper. So yes, a once-in-a-lifetime adventure is what I call it. It doesn't have to be. It's up to people if they'd like to come back and do it again or do something different. But, you know, having run a number of these before, there is nobody that has ever left that hasn't been changed by the experience of the land and the people and their reconnection with nature, and particularly the connection through animal communication, because it does take it to a whole new level. So, you know, most people want to go on a photographic, which is great, a photographic experience. However, there are challenges when it comes to spending so much time trying to get the best possible photograph and not really connecting with the animals. And so we're going to be able to do both, which I think will give a deeper, more dynamic experience of that interaction. And it pretty much changes the way that we as individuals ever see animals or the land or the people. Because you do it at a much deeper soul level than if you just were on a safari or just taking photographs. So, but we want the photographs, so we're very happy. On my White Lion adventure trip, it's a non-photographic experience, except for the one day where we go to Kruger National Park. And then it literally, the group become like paparazzi. It's very funny. For one day, they're allowed to take major amount of photographs, but the rest of the time, with the white lions, it's a non-photographic experience. So, however, it does allow us that beautiful, deep time to connect with it. So, we have, as part of our trip, because people are traveling from all over the world, the opportunity to give people a little bit of a package that we believe is financially viable. And, you know, our premise is the intention behind what we do is not about making profit or money. It's more about giving the best possible experience at the best possible financial commitment and investment as we can. So there are no unnecessary charges in our budgeting, and Kenya does tend to be a slightly more expensive location because it is very geared towards tourism, and they get booked out completely very quickly. And I mean, that means all the main lodges, all the main places. It's interesting, they've now started up, because of this problem, they've now started up what they call pop-up tented camps. So they don't actually exist. They create them depending on the demand. So that just tells you how super busy Kenya is during the main season, of course, which we're going to be part of. So the investment that you're looking at is $5,500 US. That covers everything from when you land to when you depart, other than your flight costs coming in or leaving. So because we don't know where people are coming from, those rates will change quite dramatically. So that's really the only cost. We will be flying at from the Masai Mara back into Nairobi. That's included. All your meals are included, all transfers, everything else is included. You'll find information about the itinerary and what's included, and the little extras that are not included, that will be on our website. We only have shared accommodation available now because all the singles have been taken up, and we do require a deposit of $2,500 to secure your place. We are looking at closing registration within the next couple of weeks. I may be able to extend it for another couple of weeks after that, but it really comes down then to making sure that you can get plane tickets and stuff at a reasonable price, because anytime after that event starts to really cost money. And of course, we've got to finalize our numbers with our tour operator. So we have certain restrictions with regards to that. We have 5 places left. We only do a maximum of 10 to 12 people per trip, plus myself and Kate. And the reason for that is really to keep the numbers as intimate as we can, so that we have the space and the time available to be there and be able to interact on a deeper level and in a more profound level when we have a smaller group. I have done groups that have been much bigger, and we have not been able to achieve the same amount of experience as we have done with the smaller numbers. And we just find it much easier for everybody, time-wise, itinerary-wise, and so on. Okay, as part of the bonus structure that we give, we have a follow-up interspecies session with Kate after the adventure. So, you know, to help ensure the longevity of what you have learned, because I'm always very keen. Knowledge is great, but it's insufficient if it's not applied. And so for me, it's really important to have that follow-up afterwards, particularly if you've got pets. Or you have experiences of working with animals, this can be really helpful. So Kate is doing that as a bonus package. We've also got the Elephant Council recording, which Kate did. And in fact, I think you're going to be sending that out prior to the event, aren't you? Yeah, okay. And then I'll be doing a conscious living session, private session with each person after the event too. And that will be about how to integrate those 7C principles in your life and in your business, specifically for your needs. Because I'm really keen to ensure that they are applicable to you rather than just on a general learning platform. In addition, we add on an additional tour because people are traveling from all over the country, all over the world, sorry. And so we wanted to ensure that if somebody wanted to stay for a few more days in a different experience of Kenya, that we could offer that. So we've very kindly agreed with our tour operator to put together a lovely 5-day Diani Coast to Mombasa package together. I had my honeymoon there a long, long time ago, like 20 or so years ago. A lot has changed, but the place you see at the bottom on the left there is actually where we stayed. Fantastic location. I mean, there really are beautiful beaches. It is a different experience to the normal safaris, but you can go on additional safaris. We put a package deal together, and the information's on the website. And that's purely as an optional extra, and you would deal directly with the tour operator to book that. I know that some of the ladies have already booked to go on that. I'm also going on it because after 10 days, I always love to have a few days off before I rush back into my normal life. So I will definitely be doing that, and I'm sure it will bring up some lovely memories because I did have a lovely time there last time, 20 years ago. Right, and so that's the presentation. Asante means thank you in Swahili, which is the most spoken language in Kenya. And information about our trip can be found on our website, which is myavataradventure.com. You can find out any information. The itineraries are on there. The booking form is on there. And if you have any questions, this would be a great time, opportunity for you to ask, or if you've got anything to share, we would love to hear from you.
So I have two questions.
Yes, go ahead.
And one is for Kate. So Kate, if I have zero experience with animal communication, I love animals. I can't say that I know anything about interspecies communication. Is that like an issue one way or the other?
Absolutely not. Don't worry, Heather, because it's true with some of the other participants who some have tried and not gotten anywhere. It's each of us will connect in different ways. That's the beauty of it. Doesn't have to come the way I get it or the way Tamar gets it. There's so many ways of receiving profound messages. So we will be, as I said, we're going to have a couple of classes before we go, and I will be giving you exercises and ways of connecting to, as I said, it's going to deepen your experience. So how far you go with that, it's up to sort of how you're wired and how open you are. But as I mentioned in the beginning, what's really neat is, as I've taught before, what happens in a group, everybody's abilities are augmented. We connect heart to heart. We're going to be in this magical land with all these beings around us who want to connect. And so there's going to be this energy that's going to be, I can just only imagine it, because Tamar mentioned that I have a recording for everyone from the Council of Elephants. I have been communicating with what I call the Council of all different beings for many, many years. And the elephants came to me quite a while ago and gave me the part of the reason that we call this Awakening to the Ancient Elephant Song is because elephants sing to Mother Earth. And they carry a vibration of sound healing and communication that is mostly below what the human ear can hear. And their sisters in the sea, the humpback whales, sing at above what humans, most of us can hear some of their sounds, but most of it we can't until it's augmented electronically. Drop down in the case of the whales and spit up in the case of the elephants. That's how they discovered how many vocalizations elephants were actually doing. So we will start with this profound connection and teaching from the elephants that you'll all be able to listen to as often as you wish before the trip. And then, we'll go deeply, and it'll just be a heart expanding experience no matter what you receive, but you will be receiving. I have no doubt that you will start to receive.
And then just very quickly, I can do the research as well, but are there a ton of vaccines like travel vaccines, global vaccines that we need to be thinking of?
Okay, so and Kate and I have discussed this at length. I don't do vaccines. Okay?
Yeah.
But then I come from Africa, so, and so I can't tell you what you can or can't do. Yes, there's some that are suggested, but it's really your personal choice. We are not going to a high malaria area. There is possibility of malaria, but we are going to mostly tourist destinations where, there have been no reports of malaria. So, if we were doing, off into the bush on our own and we were going to Tanzania, I would definitely say yes. But Kenya and where we're going and the way that we've done this trip, it's to minimize any kind of exposure to anything that could possibly be a problem. But, you know, I want you to be happy for yourself and make the decision for yourself around that. So that's pretty much what I've said to everybody that's already booked. It really is up to you and to get your own advice on what you want to do with that. But it's not a big list. I mean, I think most of us have had most of those vaccinations already. It's maybe one or two extras that you might have to have, but there is no. You don't have to have a certificate in order to get into the country, and that tells you that they don't have a problem with it.
Okay.
Yeah, but I think for legal reasons, everybody goes, yeah, maybe you should. It's up to you. You decide. We do the same. Because you can't say definitely no and then somebody contracts something and then you're in trouble. So that's why we leave it up to you to make the decision for yourself.
Okay.
Kate, what would you say about that? You agree?
I do. I am definitely going to have homeopathic support. I work with a homeopath who actually is going to be on the trip with us. My dear friend Bonnie is a homeopath, and so she and I will be working together with whatever it is that we need. And if any of the other members on the trip are interested in work, you know, in having homeopathic support, we'll also, I'm going to be talking about some natural bug repellent kind of stuff and things like that. I've been doing some research and because I don't like DEET and all those nasty chemicals. So I'm going to share some alternatives with everybody when we meet as our group that's going. So I'm not worried. And let's remember that we can talk to the insects. We can communicate. And I was thinking of that when Tamar was talking about the hippos. I would love to, and I just thought of it at this time. I'm so excited seeing the pictures again because we've done this once before, and but with the hippos, and anybody, we can send out a message that we're here in love, and that we are here to support them, and that this is all about no harm for anyone, and put that out with love and respect, and absolutely we can do that with insects. And honor them, and because I've done that before. I've worked with insects. I've worked with all kinds of things from biting ants to. So we have some other tools in the toolbox.
I know it sounds really strange, Heather, but it's really true. I mean, when I first came into animal communication, I'm like, what? Who do what? And then I couldn't understand how big the world was. I was like, this whole new world opened up, and there was actually people who did this professionally. I was like, wow, okay, there must be something to this. And so I spent years in researching and looking into it and understanding it. What is profound about it is that it helps us as human beings to communicate better too with other human beings, because when you learn to, Kate has some wonderful processes that will go through, and you can use them for normal communication, is those processes become really profound as part of your kind of everyday life. And you find the way that you communicate and the way that you sense things and see things starts to change quite significantly. Mm-hmm. So it's not just to communicate with animals. It's to communicate better with ourselves, understanding and listening to our intuition and our consciousness better, but also paying more attention to those around us and seeing things that we've never seen before, or paying attention to things that we've never paid attention to before. Yeah. We had these profound experiences with the lions where, some people had seen lions before. I've certainly seen lions before, but when we actually sat with them and we went into meditation and we connected our heart to heart, which is principally what telepathy is about. So it's a Spanish telepathy. They say it's telepathy. That is pretty much what we're actually doing to each other as humans. So it's fascinating when you do it with animals. And wild animals, unlike pets, aren't so chatty. because pets tend to be humanized. You know, they want to talk, and it's something. Okay, cats don't generally. Doggies do, and then some doggies don't, and then others want to just talk all the time. But then the wildlife, it's more about they want to share messages with us more than anything. You know, they have this essence of, you know, whatever that they want to share with you. So I had this incredible encounter with Nebu, who's this female white lion, and this strong image of her standing there and a mane coming on her. That's the vision I got, was this mane. And I'm like, but you're a female. And it was stand your ground. You must stand in your strength. You must stand in your power. And I'm like, whoa. And so for me, that was the communication. And so it's not like a conversation. Whereas I've had those conversations with my cats and my dogs, real conversations with them. So it is very different with regards to that. And I actually think it's a beautiful way. And what will be interesting is you will remember that actually you were born with that ability. All humans are born with that ability. We just get taught the 5 senses, even though intuition, of course, is the 6th sense, and then we've got telepathy, which is like the 7th. But you see, telepathy cannot be controlled, and therefore it was never encouraged. But we are, if you see children with animals, their innate connection is there. And they're talking away and they're communicating, they love them, and they have no fear of it. The only time that happens is when there's the human influence into it. And so it's incredible. You have that. You're born with that. You just haven't exercised the muscle for it. And so we will give you the tools in which to do that, the exercises in which to do that. So, yeah, it can be very profound. And some people walk away and go, huh, I didn't get any of that. None of that happened to me. And yet the way they're communicating and the way what they're seeing and doing, they go, oh, my God, it's completely different. So it affects people in different ways. So, yes, we've had quite a few non-animal communicative people on our trips that have had profound experiences one way or another with them. Mm-hmm. So when you start barking like a dog, we'll know you got it.
Yeah, exactly.
That's a joke. That's a joke.
Yeah, I know. Well, it might not be. Who knows?
If you start trumpeting in the night, we'll know that you've been.
Yes.
Yeah.
For sure.
Channeling elephants.
But it's, you laugh. I mean, so many people after my first white lion trip said, my goodness, you have become the queen white lion. Just because the way I was talking and how I was coming across had changed me. And, you know, even for Kate and myself, we're as much the students on this as you are, because they're the teachers. Remember, the animals are the teachers. We're just the students. Mm-hmm. And so it is, you know, pretty transformational from that point of view.
Yeah.
Anyway, so yeah, it should be fun, if nothing else. And we did have a lot of animals show up. I mean, the last trip we did, we saw, which is unheard of in the Kruger National Park, we saw every single one of the big 5 within a few hours. And that's because we set an intention before we went into the park. And we asked if they wanted to show up. We would be very delighted to see them. And, of course, we wanted to take lots of photographs. Kathy. lots of photographs. It was so noisy. I was just standing there going, geez, it's like a paparazzi. Because we hadn't had any, we weren't allowed previously. So, yes, it was just beautiful to be able to really connect with them in that way. They showed up. And I mean, we had a hyena. I will share the photos with you. We had a hyena who really posed for us, and another baboon who was like, oh, hello, yes, no problem. Like put his arm out like this and put it down, and he moved. I mean, it was just so, and that's because they realize who we are. And that makes us very different when we go on a trip like this. Because our energy is different, and the animals can feel it. They feel it all the time when you come into their presence. They can tell straight away we're a different kind of human. because we're coming from a different intention, a different place. So it's profound, and that's why we have people have life-changing experiences on the trip compared to what you would do on a normal safari.
Mm-hmm. One of the things that I love that Tamar has done for us is we're going to have our private tour. We're not going to be with other people. Mm-hmm. It's going to be us. So if we need to stop and do a centering exercise and send a message out and receive messages back, there won't be all these people on the bus going, who are these crazy women? It'll just be us crazy women communicating with the animals. So that to me is a real blessing, because we don't have to worry about the energies, contrasting. And that makes it very, very special. So thank you, Tamar, for making sure that we our private.
Yeah, you do. It's kind of strange, the stuff that we do. Some people are like, ugh. But then we get the results and they hear us talking about it. We had this a couple of times, and people came up to us and said, "What are you talking about? You saw all 5 of the big 5." And by the way, I try not to refer to them as the big 5, because that was based on the hunting preferences. Okay. But I said, yes, we got to see all of them. And they said, how is that possible? And I'm like, yeah, I'm not going to tell them.
It's a secret.
And then every now and then I go, oh, it's just animal communication. And I walk away. And people are like, huh? Did she say what she said? So yes, it is a little bit out there, but it's fun. I mean, and they love it. The animals just really appreciate it because they're being heard.
Yeah, they've been felt. Yeah, they're being felt and seen on another level. And because we all are connected, when they feel that, and again, as our group does that together, it amplifies that energy, which is really exciting for me, because I can see and feel that too. And as we're together, you'll all see and feel it too, or not maybe see it, but you'll feel it. Mm-hmm. And again, we become a circle of beings who love them, and they can't help but feel that, and respond how they wish. And of course, it is up to them. And so I can't wait to see how all of that interaction takes place, and how our connection, as Tamar said, deepens within ourselves, to our world, to each other, and of course to all the animals and plants that we share this beautiful home with.
Yeah, and it'll take your conscious business element and the leadership stuff to a whole different level. It gives you an insight that is so profound, that is quite unusual to find. And that's why it's so attractive to me, because I have both those elements. I have the practical business element side of it, but then this whole personal awakening to a new way of communicating. And if only we could learn more about how to do that, we would change the world, literally. So that's, I'm changing it one person at a time on the trip, in any way, shape, form, or capacity. That's my passion, my desire, my purpose. Yeah. Anything else? Kathy, you're all sorted.
I'm all set to go. I'm ready to move right this minute.
All right.
Yeah, we're going to have a call, a group call, so that we can all speak to each other, introduce each other, ask any questions. I've already been fielding off the visas, and the Bonnie was on earlier going, I'm in the visa, where am I staying? What's the telephone number? What's the thing called? So yeah, my job is mainly and Kate's is mainly to make it as easy and as enjoyable as possible for whoever comes along. We're open books, and any question that we can help you with is, our pleasure. We really do want to make it, for me, it's really important to help people to have the best possible experience that they can have. And look, stuff will come up. People's stuff comes up. My stuff comes up. And that's what Kate's there for. He doesn't know that yet, but yeah. But it's true. I get very emotively moved by experiences. And, you know, something that I thought I dealt with a long time ago suddenly pops its head up again. I'm like, what? No. And deal with it. So there can be some of that emotional shifting going on.
That's normal. That's normal.
Yeah.
We all have stuff come up when we open our hearts and we're touched deeply, we cry. It's a good thing.
Yeah. And do you do meditation at all? Kathy, do you do meditation?
I don't. Well, I don't per se, but when I'm out taking photographs, I'm doing a lot of it. I know.
Yeah. So Kathy is a professional photographer.
Oh, beautiful.
Yeah.
Wildlife photography.
Well, I like the photo in your background. It looks like a fun little polar bear, maybe.
Polar bears, yeah.
That was up in Churchill, Manitoba.
Oh, wow.
It was a great trip.
And she's just come back from Asia, having done the Asian elephants and tigers.
Mm.
So are you going to put those pictures up on your Instagram or your Instagram website?
Instagram, but I have a website. And I did put the Indian, actually both are on there already.
Oh, good. I'm going to go have a look. Great. I poked around in there the other day. I'm like, wow, she's coming on our trip with us.
Well, I love doing it because I think it's really important for children to see the animals that are out there, and then that will tend to lead into taking care of the land. Yeah. And I think we're in a desperate situation right now where that has to happen.
Absolutely. Yeah. And Heather, do you do any meditation at all?
I do.
You're good? Yeah, because that's a big part of connection that we'll be teaching in the animal communication. So that's a good start. Because that meditative state is, you know, where you go into your heart space, and that's the important place to be. Because, you know, animals see right through everything else. That's the other thing. It's like super vulnerable. We had the beautiful, the two lion brothers. One came right up in front of me and just sat, and the other one, his brother came round him and sat on the other side of the 4x4 we were in. And he was staring right at me. And of course, all the other people looking on either side of me at him. And we were just so taken in, and we could feel the arch of energy between the two brothers holding us in that beautiful space, and just sending us love and gratefulness and gratitude and inspiration and this courage that I've never felt before. And so when they broke the energy belt, you could see all of us just went like this. Physically, we all just it was incredible. And afterwards, we all burst into tears because it was so profound. And people were like, what the hell just happened? And because they are funny. They like to play games with the humans, and that's how they do it. But there's an intention behind it. So they get a little bit cheeky. So they both rolled over and showed their butts to us as we were leaving, which is a sign of trust, which was incredible. But it was kind of like flashing to us because we were women as we were going. We thought, cheeky little boys. So yeah, some strange stuff can happen. Anyway. All righty. I'm going to leave it at that because I'm not even sure what the time is.
We've just run a little over because we started a little late. So
okay. All right.
We're good.
All right. So thank you very much for joining us. I really appreciate you making the time. I'm sorry for those that didn't make it. And two of my friends who were definitely coming on haven't made it, so I will chase them up and find out what happened with them. But thanks again, and if you need me, I'm on the email, should have the email address, or if you want to give a call, or we can have a Skype or whatever. Kathy, you all sorted out?
Yeah.
Yeah. Have you done your visa? And
I've got my airline tickets, and I've not done the visa because it said it was 90 days, and it wasn't 90 days when I looked at it.
You can. It's not urgent. You can do it a couple of days before you go anyway, and it's online, so it makes it really easy.
I actually went on the site, and now they keep telling me, "I've got your information, but you haven't finished it." But I'm just waiting for the time.
Okay. All right. So if you need anything, just let me know. Bonnie was like, give me the address, I need this, I need that, and I'm on it now. I'm like, okay, here's all the information. All right, thanks very much, everybody. Have a wonderful rest of your day, because it's afternoon your time. And thank you for coming back. I really appreciate that. And for staying the longest. I'm so impressed.
Nice to meet you all.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.